And we almost have to view it through the lens of justifying our own existence. So if we can't give those sponsors and exhibitors ROI, then we actually have to ask the question, can the show continue to exist? So it's our fundamental mission ultimately as event organizers to place our exhibitors and sponsors as like strategic partners in this and make sure that we are delivering for them. Because if we're not delivering for them and we're not actually making sure that that ROI exists, then we are going to have an event in a few years' time, and it snowballs pretty quickly.
Would you say the sponsoring exhibitors are kind of the most crucial part of this? Because I've heard a lot of event organizers talk about, your show's nothing without them, and you start to fund the show without having any, participants paying money. You start with those people. So actually, they might be the most important people, or do you think they're not?
I mean, to use a gross word, it's a symbiotic relationship, isn't it? Because if your sponsors can't see the value, then you don't have the seed of the show. But equally, your delegates need to see why they would want to attend. So if you've got a show that is just delivering for sponsors, but you can't find the reason for those delegates to actually be there, then ultimately your sponsors are going to lose out and they're going to leave. Or if the delegates don't get what they want out of this because you've almost neglected them at the cost of generating funds, then equally they're going to walk away from it, which comes back to the whole ROI piece. The sponsors aren't going to get that either. So it's a bit of a vicious circle.
And I suppose you're dealing with different people, aren't you? Because I mean, Kelly, we talked before the webinar around, you know, sometimes I haven't even thought of this. Sometimes your sponsors are not even the people in the room. And so you've got all these different stakeholders. How do you manage all those relationships to make sure they're getting value out of your show when sometimes you never even meet them, maybe?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a lot of communication. It's touching base with your internal team who's having these conversations with the actual sponsors. So sales, all those initial calls that they're having, what are they looking to get out of? And then on the other side, we have a whole audience development team that is having conversations with the actual delegates, the people purchasing individual tickets, and what are they looking to get out of the conference. So it's a lot of prep leading up to it and a lot of cross-department communication.
So how do you do that? So you are literally having calls or is it webinars? How do you find out what they want out of your shows? That sounds like a lot of work.
It is. It's definitely effortful, but we find that that personal touch is really what makes the difference. It's not just faceless webinars, it's not just surveys, it's individual sales representatives going to their sponsorship contacts and saying, how can I deliver for you at this conference? And then bringing that back to the logistics teams. It's the audience development team saying, you as an allocator, what makes this conference worthwhile to you? And then bringing that back to the logistics team. So lots of CRM management to mark those leads and mark those notes. But it's that personal touch that we find makes a really big difference when delivering for our audience.
And do you find you're kind of putting people into buckets? You're saying, okay, we've got five general kind of bits of value that the sponsor exhibitors want to get out of our show. And so
Mhm.
they're kind of trending around five buckets, or are there like hundreds and everyone wants something different?
Think when you get too narrow, you run a risk, right? If you try to get too granular with things, then it becomes, well, now you're not offering that thing that I specifically asked for if you're going that far down. So we do try to keep it in pretty general buckets of, different types of sponsors, different types of delegates, about four or five of each, just to make sure we're really delivering in those broad categories.
And I think I'd like to go around the room, Chion, when it comes to those sorts of buckets, what are the things that sponsor exhibitors are looking to get out of your shows? Because obviously there's different things. There's kind of brand awareness, there's, leads. Have you got various, metrics or things that your sponsors want out of your shows as well?
Yes, it's a little bit of everything. It's obviously a lot of the leads. It's also connections. We do have a large C-suite number that come to our show, so they're looking for not just the content and people going to the exhibits and getting a view of their exhibits, but like Kelly mentioned, a little bit all around of everything.
And Nick, how are you bucketing what your sponsor exhibitors want from your show? And can you like detail some of the buckets and what are the things that they want to get out of it?
I mean, hilariously, they all want the same thing, which is access to C-suite individuals in the NHS who they believe before they get on site that those are the deal makers. Those are the people who can influence policy. Those are the people who, for them, even having one scan of a C-suite individual leads to we have achieved ROI. Um, then we actually readjust the thinking for each of those sponsors and exhibitors and say, well, hang on, let's look at the audience share and let's look at the conversations that you had last year and let's look at the conversations that actually matter in the healthcare space because these people, so for example, graduates and trainees, actually have a huge wealth of knowledge to add to like the healthcare space at the moment because they've got what they're going to be the future of they're going to be the future C-suites that we're all looking to attract, or they might be like new tech organizations that they don't realize they should be speaking to. And so we start to reframe a lot of that conversation for them and say, don't just focus on C-suite. I know we position that in our marketing. We say, a third of our attendees are C-suite, but that means that there's two-thirds of our audience who aren't, which means that we have to push that narrative to them too. If there are two-thirds of these people who are not the audience that you want to have to achieve your ROI, what are you actually going to do to have those conversations with them to achieve ROI differently?
I like that. So it's almost like you're doing the Jedi mind trick on them. These are not the droids you're looking for. These are not the
Exactly
C-suites
that.
you're looking for. You're looking for these other people. But it's what it is, isn't it? You guys are all kind of community owners. You own this community who are coming to your events, and they're not all the same. And so it's about directing the right community to the right sponsor because they all want different things. But like you say, they ultimately all want leads at the end of the day in business, but it might come from different people. I suppose with you, Nick, it's crazy world of public sector where you've got a huge buying committee, haven't you? And they probably think they want to go for the most senior person, but there's probably 24 people inside an organization they could be talking to.
Very much so. And I think that particularly in public sector, some of maybe the newer exhibitors. So take AI. Obviously, that is moving at unbelievable pace every day of the week. There are new people who want to get into the NHS because they see the size of the contracts that are there. They think that by attending the event and speaking to 100 individuals, that's it. I've got my ticket to the NHS. But we also have to do the education piece where we're saying ROI might be 3 years away. It might be 5 years away because processes are slow. So don't expect a lead now to be next month's sales piece. It's a lead now, might be a conversation that continues for the next 5 years that leads to that contract. Once you've got that framing right for them, they go, okay, this is a very different type of show. This is not, I'm going to sell widgets to these people tomorrow. I'll book them on a sales call and then that's it. Away we go. It's very much like the seed of a partnership, another conversation, introduction to another person. And that's how ROI grows for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chion, you're obviously managing a lot of sponsors yourself. Are you doing this consultative kind of approach? Do you run webinars and things like that for your sponsors to let them know, what to expect from your show and helping them through this whole process of getting the most out of Yotta?
Yes, not specifically webinars, but I am available for them to book meetings so we can have this one-on-one conversation. I do have it with most of them. Repeat sponsors, they already know what they want, but we do touch base as well. And yes, with like sales, when they sell, obviously they get a sense of what these sponsors are looking for, but I touch base on that as well because many times the person who signs the contract is not the person working logistics or who's actually going to be on site and what they actually need versus this package looks good and this is what we want.
I see you nodding away to that, Kelly. It seems like that's a kind of pain point for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's always the tricky part, right? The person you're organizing with ahead of the conference isn't necessarily the person on site. So even if your client success team or your logistics team is really good at communicating with that point of contact, how does that success then translate on site? What can we do to really make sure that the team that is there physically at their booth or attending the conference knows the company's goals and can execute them on site? So that transition is really a key place for event organizers to pay attention to.
So I'm guessing your CRM systems are very detailed because you've almost got like two funnels. You've got one for the people attending on site, and you've got the people behind the scenes, and each one want different things from your show, and you need to make sure you kind of respond to those.
Yeah, definitely. Our client success team does a lot of legwork in making sure that everything is documented. They've got their point of contact for the pre-event organizing and coordinating, and then they've got their list of who's actually attending on site. So we send a bulk email to those attendees saying, here are your tools, here's what you need to know. Is that enough? I'm not sure. I think that there can be so much more done and a better handoff, but that's one of the ways that we've managed this so far.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, how do you square that circle when it comes to sending out information to sponsors and exhibitors? There's obviously you can send them too much stuff, you can overload them, but then you can send them not enough. What's the kind of sweet spot? What sort of communications are you doing? Are you just sending them emails? Are you doing telephone calls? Are you doing webinars? Give me a sense of this kind of flow of communication so you're not overwhelming these people.
Do you know, we actually never get this right, because we change this every year directly as a result of feedback. And that feedback is so, it's needly, if I'm perfectly honest. It's when you get the, you didn't give us enough information. Okay, fine. Next year, we'll give you too much, or we'll give you a little bit more. And then you get into the, well, you've overwhelmed my inbox. But that might just be that we have sent one more email than last year, or we did one additional webinar, and suddenly you are the bad person in this. So I actually don't think there's a sweet spot. We do the webinar piece. We've got our big town hall tomorrow, to walk them through platforms, logistics, to really prep them for the show in full. We have a really strong communication plan for them, that's from about 3 months out, is an email per week to say, this is what you need to be doing this week. These are the things you need to be managing. We've got our exhibitor manual piece, and obviously there's all the tasks that needs to sit alongside that. And we've started doing a lot more on that bit to put even more at task level, so that it's not just, here's a long email with a load of stuff that you're going to ignore. It's all that kind of like bite size. Just focus on doing your website piece. Give us your logo. Give us that bit of information. By all being task based, actually that makes it a lot cleaner for them, because I'm like, okay, cool. I know what I'm doing with this time around. But as I say, I don't think we're ever going to get it right, because I'm sure after tomorrow we'll have a brand new round of feedback that says more, less, something in between, and we'll adapt again next year.
Yeah, I'd love to come to you in a sec, Chi, on just about managing the sponsors and your whole user journey. But I just want to just quickly go into that with you, Nick, around the webinar. How long's the webinar? Do you expect questions at the end? What's your show rate? How many people do you expect to like turn up in terms of percentage of all your exhibitors? I'm just trying to get a sense for the audience to say, this is what good looks like if you were to run a webinar for your sponsored exhibitors.
So it's 90 minutes. In all the times that we have done it, it always runs longer. Everyone brings their specific questions, which, even though we've covered them in the broadest sense, they still have to ask their version of the same question that somebody else has asked 5 times before. We have a drop-off rate only of about 5%. So engagement is really high. And actually, because there's sections of it that if you've got returning people, you'd expect them to know and probably just not want to engage with it. They are desperate to know exactly the same thing that they heard last year, to know that the platforms haven't changed, to know what might be the updates to the platforms. Just because we used Grip last year as our delegate facing app that's got all of that wonderful, rich functionality in it for the exhibitors. Has that changed since the last time we logged into it? Do I need to know more? Do I need to prepare the rest of the team for this? They want absolutely every specific bit of detail, right down to the where's the link so that I can log in to do that thing to make those things happen. So it's highly technical. We have great people from different departments presenting on it to make sure that it's not just one person who might not have all the knowledge that needs to be there, covering all of the different sections. We invite our suppliers to it too, to make sure that they are actually giving the best version of this. We're very lucky to have Abby joining us tomorrow from Grip, who'll cover the Grip piece in far better detail than any of our team trying to do a hatchet job on it. But people walk away feeling informed, and then they email us for weeks after saying, here's the thing that you didn't cover, even though we did. Please tell me my specific instance of how that thing works.
Sounds like AI can't come soon enough to do all of that for all the various people and individual questions, answer
Amen.
sessions. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And just lastly, in terms of percentage of your number of exhibitors versus how many actually show up to that webinar, is it like 50%? Is it 60%?
No, it's 92%.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really good. And Kelly, do you run a webinar as well, did you say? Or are you looking to run one in the future?
Yeah, that's something that I'd like to implement for our large flagship conferences in the future. It's something that I've done in the past at a prior organization, and we found all the same things that you find, Nick. People want to ask the same questions for their specific context, even though it's the same context as the exhibitor next to them. You'll never avoid that, I don't think. But I do find them to be really helpful because that's one of those places where you get the people that will be on site, not only your contact that you're dealing with ahead of time, but you're getting the people that are actually attending. So it's your first step and your first point of contact with those people to prep them for success.
Good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of webinars, as you can see today. While we are talking, I just want to promote our next webinar. Message from our sponsor. Again, it's us, it's Grip. And the message is come along to our next webinar, 28th of May. It's all about agents, AI agents, and how they're going to transform the events industry. So we have two great speakers, Max Gabriel, co-founder and CEO of Marcus AI. He used to be a president at Informa. He was head of business transformation. So he was like a big dog, and now he's gone into the startup world and has got some great things going with AI agents. And then Manas from Bridged. And he is a co-founder of that company who, again, is doing agentic work in the events world. So it's called Supercharged, how agentic AI will shape the events industry. Scan the QR code, come along. It's going to be a lot of fun. While you're scanning that QR code, I am going to come to Chion. Chion, Nick says something really interesting about tasks, task lists. I believe in checklists. I think I read a book once about how checklists saves people's lives, and they kind of introduced it in World War II, and suddenly deaths went right down because the doctors could just focus on what's needed to be done. They didn't miss any steps. Now, I know we're not talking about life or death here, but maybe in some people's situations in the events industry, it could be. But tell me about how you manage sponsors, because you've got like 177 that you managed at your last event. What did you do with task lists? I'd love you to just walk me through your kind of user journey, what you did at the start, and how you made it work to be able to manage that volume of sponsors on your own.
Yes, well, first it's just managing the inventory and having that up to date. And obviously I created my separate spreadsheet, right, that has every single product that we offer for sponsorship, what that, a description of that, and what tasks are associated with that. And then I plug those in to Grip to the portal. So then I know, and then within my spreadsheet, I put in our due dates, which I apply on there so that if everything and if anything changes on my spreadsheet, it's applied to the portal. And that's how all the tasks are built on my end.
And then what happens from the sponsor exhibitor perspective? Because they're seeing that they have to do certain things. So is it fill in their profile, make some connections? Talk me through what they're seeing, what their
Yes.
experience is.
So once our contracts come through, right, they're onboarded, I do send out an onboarding email, which lets them know that I will be sending out their portal access. And I just briefly explain what the portal is, that all their tasks, all their sponsorships are listed there, and all their deliverables are also there with their tasks and due dates. Once they log into the portal on the homepage, they have a brief description of our event, the due dates, and then they have all their important links like the exhibitor kit, like the F&B order form, our floor plan, etc. And then once they go to their task tab, they can see all of their tasks with the description of what the task is or what that task is associated with, along with the due dates.
Are you having to like herd the cats again? Are you gonna have to, do you have to like get them, pick up the phone to get them to use it, or do they just use it?
Um, 50-50. It's a lot of them just go in and get everything done that they can get done now, and then they don't have anything else to do for the remainder of the year until the event. Some of them I do have to email them separately, even though the portal does send like reminder emails, or it's going to be due in 3 days, it's overdue, and then we do send out like the bulk emails once a month of like these are all of your tasks. But I find that for those that don't submit, like don't log in and complete their tasks, email works best, reaching out to them via email. And then again, they're like, as Nick mentioned, it's like, what's my link? What's my username and password? How do I do this? Even though they've done it before.
Yeah, it's always fun, isn't it? It definitely is the herding cats piece. And you're all heroes for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about, what you're actually selling them, because I find that really fascinating about how you monetize things. Because, before I joined Grip, I was like, oh, you just sell them some booth space. But now I'm working at this company, you realize like the plethora of opportunities you can sell to sponsored exhibitors. Nick, what are some of the things you're monetizing from your events and the value you're giving to these sponsors? What are they actually buying?
Uh, they're buying access to the NHS ecosystem, which actually means that they're buying an experience from us from the moment they walked into the event to the time that they leave. And we think quite carefully about like the flow of the show and the flow of our floor plan in particular, because something that always bugs me every year is the comment of it was a quiet event. And that tends to be related to poor floor plan layout for it. Because if you've got dog legs all over the place, if you've got a flow that's absolutely atrocious, that perhaps looks after the front half of the hall, but the back half of the hall is a dead zone, or it's not actually built for exhibitors to genuinely get something out of it. Um, Obviously they're not going to get their ROI, and then you hear it on repeat. It was a quiet show, it was rubbish, I didn't get anything out of it, blah, 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 blah. So we have made sure that we really don't have any dead spots. And so we've got activations built into the floor, and that's one of the things that um, supercharge lead gen for people. Because by doing a headshot lounge, by doing a hydration station, by doing some form of catering activation, you're forcing people to engage with something that they immediately want, a service that they are going to get something out of, and then in return for a scan, you might have 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 leads that come out of something like that because it's something that delegates want, and that's really easy to monetize. You can also use the content piece, and there's a bit of a like a dirty industry conversation about should you ever have pay to play, or should it be that the program lives in its own right and you never allow sponsors to actually pay for a slot? And I think that we sit on the pay to play side because it's actually it's easier for our model. But lots of people can argue about that. But it still does come back to the activations. It comes back to the floor plan piece. So we've got 8 theatres built into the show floor, and then all of our stands are built around those theatres to make sure that because content is king, all of those exhibitors are then going to get the people flowing out of those theatres straight back to them. Like I say, the way you design the event is fundamental to the success for ROI, and that is what you're actually building for people. It's all part of that same experience.
Yeah, I've noticed Julius Solaris writing his newsletter recently around how shows are changing and they're putting the activations kind of more in the middle and the content stages are in the corners. And there's kind of lots of things for people to get to the content they have to go through, like meeting lounges and things like that. So it makes it more of a focused community.
I'd argue that we've all been doing that for a very long time, and
Yeah.
perhaps Julius has just decided to start writing about it now. I think
Okay.
all of us have designed our shows with those things in mind. The theatres are already there, the activations are already there. Um, Perhaps not everyone else has quite clocked that that's great event design.
Yeah, it's all part and parcel of it, isn't it, to make sure everyone gets the most value out of the show. Um, I'd like to go around to the other guys. So, Kelly, what are you selling to your sponsor exhibitors? Obviously, it's access to your community, but in terms of monetization, are you doing things around meetings? Are you doing different lounges that people could sponsor? What are the kind of things, if I was to come to you as a sponsor exhibitor and buy tomorrow, what could I get?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. The most important thing for our sponsors is access to high level groups of people and VIPs essentially. So one of the biggest selling points for our sponsors are sponsorship to our private credit club lounge, which is specifically for this high level, highly demanded audience. If they become a sponsor of that lounge, they get free reign in that area. They have access to these people, and that's really, really key. It's not even about capturing their information. Sometimes it's being able to sit down in a quiet space with these people. So dedicated audience time with them in a more casual setting. And similarly, it's private events. It's these kind of offshoot events that sponsors can participate in because then they are then the only service provider, for example, or credit fund in a room full of allocators. So it's this premium access that they're able to purchase. Some of the other things similar to Nick is these activations. One of the things we found most successful is a barista having a specialty coffee stand. If you, especially if you're doing conferences at hotels, having something a little bit more unique as opposed to just drip coffee from a big, you know, heated tub. People can go and get a latte or their espresso, and that drives a lot of attention, and people have been able to get leads that way. Something else that we've started to offer our sponsors is lead retrieval. I don't know if that we're there in that conversation yet, but we've seen exorbitant growth and interest in lead retrieval licensing, and being able to purchase access to scan badges and collect those data points.
So yeah, that's a great point. I was going to mention it at some point, but I completely forgot. So you brought it up at the right time. Tell me about lead retrieval. Tell me about the how it might have been done before and how you do it now. What's the kind of user experience for me as an exhibitor? How do I experience this? What do I get? How do I use it?
Yeah, I have a great example or a comparison. PCDL, the Private Credit Industry Conference on Direct Lending, 2025 versus 2026. This was the conference that we just had recently in Nashville. About 1,500 delegates, hundreds of sponsors, um, tons of people on site. Last year, the lead retrieval that we offered was a single license with only 3 profile access. So a sponsor could have 10 people, but only 3 of their attendees could actually scan badges, and there was no cross communication with that. So they still found a benefit. They could get that list and they could then go and do some manual work and combine those lists and make their own notes at their booth. Versus this year, we saw a 50% increase in lead retrieval purchases because we were able to offer full team transparency and full team access through our lead retrieval upgrade process. So we went from only 3 people on a team, for example, being able to scan leads to an entire team. Some of our sponsors are sending 25, 30 attendees. So now all 30 of those people are seeing the same leads. They're setting their same qualification questions. They're being able to tag people in comments saying, oh, this person that I spoke with is actually more relevant to this person on this team. So you follow up with them. And that transparency and that cross-team communication has been huge. So I'm really excited to see that grow.
And so they're literally doing it through the app and they're scanning people's badges, and then those leads are available to download or even to add notes to in the back end.
Yeah, it maximizes their time at the conference by being able to do it that way. They're not having to export something and then put it into a different sheet while they're on site. They don't have to waste their time doing that. Now, when they're actually on the floor of the exhibit hall, they can do it all in a moment in one place, and everybody across the team can see it.
And lead scanning, is that something, Chion, you offer at your show?
Yes, actually, it's included for all of our sponsors. We don't charge additional for the lead scanning, but in 2024, we did offer, in addition to that, we did offer some more targeted leads as to like who visited their booths and things like that. We got away with that for 2025 and onwards. We just used the lead scans. But like Kelly mentioned, there was an upgrade in the group manage group engage, sorry, from 24 to 25, where the sponsors could add those lead qualification questions, rate their scan and write comments. So post show, after meeting hundreds of people, they don't forget who they scanned. Um, so it's become a bit more automated, easier to use for the sponsors. But we do monetize, I guess, with what last year you called LKT. I believe you rebranded to ACT.
Oh, AMP. That's a new word. ACT, ACT, correct. ACT. We've
ACT,
gone through
yeah.
lots of names. We've got this new product called ACT, which
With
we'll
ACT,
definitely talk about.
yes, that we do sell as a sponsorship opportunity for, for those who want to have maybe an outside event that's not organized by Yada and have access to being able to email all of our attendees. But this is something that we do actually include for some of our sponsorship opportunities, like our private dinners and breakfast and lunches with content and those items.
Yeah, because this is the perennial problem, isn't it? You get exhibitor sponsors saying, I want your attendee list. But that's kind of your intellectual property. And if you hand that over, you kind of lost control of it. People could resell it and do all sorts. So what you're saying is you're basically allowing people to, like you would on LinkedIn, where you can find people, but you can basically search via a very controlled way via a credit system to be able to find particular people that then they could email via your system to invite them to a private dinner or something like that.
Correct, because they can filter, right? They can filter by company name or by title. So if they're targeting specific companies or certain level of people for their event, they can target those directly. But at Yada, we do provide the attendee list to all of our sponsors. Obviously, not with personal information, just name, company, title, but that is also provided.
So I'm going to come to some of the questions now because there's some really good questions in the chat. And if any of the participants want to submit more questions, feel free. Now's the time to do it. So Brianna, she said, a really good question. How do you handle sponsors who don't honor deadlines? Oh, we all know about those. And they submit materials way after the due date. Um, Nick, it sounds like you've got a good process for this. What do you do?
We don't have a good process for this because sadly, the reality is money speaks louder than anything else. So we've got one particular partner who we continue to work with them. They uh, do give us a fairly hefty chunk of money for sponsorship, and they don't play ball with a single deadline and haven't done for 5 years now. We put all sorts of fabricated things in place for it. So we say, well, if you don't meet this deadline, then you don't get access to this platform. If you don't do this, then we won't, allow you to purchase things on the exhibitor shop. And then we cave because they say, oh, well, then we won't be signing up next year. And you go, okay, this has backfired. So I guess we have no power here. And that sadly is a reality. When money is involved and you want to continue to have that money flow into you, because it makes all conversations dirty as sin, um, you don't have any power in this. So I'd love to say that there is actually a thing we could do about it, but I'm also a realist. We roll with the punches and we adapt on the fly for everyone that doesn't meet the deadlines.
Yeah, the customer's always right. That's the kind of key thing there, isn't it? Kelly, how do you deal with naughty sponsors that don't honor their deadlines?
It's a really fine line of being able to accommodate people versus running a risk of making errors, right? It's something that I see in terms of printed signage quite a bit, right? Where we need vector logos in hand by a specific date and it has to go to print by a specific date. Otherwise, the signage doesn't get printed and we don't have anything on site. Um, so similarly to Nick, there's not a good answer. Um, but I do think there needs to be at a certain point a hard line. And I try my best as somebody who deals with all of these, like particularly signage things, to accommodate as best I can. But if you keep saying yes, it runs the risk of error. So if I make changes 2 seconds before I submit, it's potential that there's typos, that there's the wrong logo was used instead. So it's just over communicating with the sponsors that this is the deadline. If you don't meet that deadline, we'll see what we can do, but there's no guarantee and there's no promise. Things like providing electrical on site and being able to purchase it, maybe it's at a higher fee. If they are past that deadline, they can still do it, but at a higher cost to them. We found success in that a little bit more, so people have a little bit more breathing room, they feel, and they're not worried about the extra spend.
And what about you, Chion? How do you deal with sponsors that aren't playing ball?
Um, we Well, first of all, I provide deadlines that are way in advance of my deadlines because I know they will be late submissions or ask for extensions. So I'm okay providing those extensions because they still fall within, for example, what Kelly said, the signage deadline, right? That first deadline. Um, but obviously, we would like everything to come in on time or within that first deadline to not pay. So we as show management don't pay the higher prices, but we also do price everything out in mind that they would submit within the final deadline that we pay full retail price for the services that, for example, for the signage. Um, I haven't had sponsors like Nick mentioned that um, say they won't come back if we don't print their signage or whatnot. But um, it's it's a lot of after the portal only sends certain emails, so then it's a lot of individual reaching out, right? Personal reach outs to all of them, like sometimes having to call them, having to text them, and multiple emails and letting them know that if they don't submit by certain deadlines, they just won't make it into that print. And we've done it. Or having to print their signage that's pixelated because they submitted it late and they didn't have time to redo it the way it should be. But
I also find false deadlines, they're always your best friend, aren't they?
Mhm.
Until you do a couple of iterations of the show and they're like, yeah, I'm on to you. I know those aren't real deadlines. Um, Quick question, Chion, about the portal system from Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous Attendee. They said there's an element of people might not use it. So would you ever fill it in on their behalf? Have you got like an administrator access where you could just go, oh, I know what you want. We can talk on the phone. I'll just do it for you. And you fill in their details in the portal. Or is that never an option?
All the time. Sometimes they'll email it to me, so I'll submit it to the on the portal for them. Or, for example, Crip isn't automated yet, where they can click and choose their assets from last year where they've already submitted. So we have it. But then I just want to make sure with the sponsor that they want to reuse those assets. So if that's the case, then yes, it's obviously more work for me to copy paste everything from last year. But yes, I do that a lot.
Yeah, you just do whatever you got to do to get it done, haven't you, really? Nick, I'm going to come to you. Brianne's got another great question. What do you see are the most popular activations in your expo hall? Anything clever, new, and trending?
The ones that nobody else is doing. An activation means that it has to activate your brand. So coffee is a great activation, but it's also not an activation. if you're just handing out coffee that doesn't then lead to a conversation, doesn't actually engage that brand properly. So lots of people do coffee, lots of people do headshot lounges, those sorts of things. I think the most popular activations are the ones where you are genuinely seeing something different, something new. And AI and like vibe coding in particular opens a whole world of possibility for something like that. So something that we're attempting to explore. God knows if we'll actually achieve it. And you've got 6 weeks until the event. Taking the headshot lounge, applying an overlay through AI, then getting those images that have been created to be part of a mosaic where they all spell out the NHS's lozenge and contribute to that. So there's quite a lot of like extra kit going on site to achieve that, but it's a delegate facing thing. It's a bit of a hearts and minds, warm, fuzzy feeling thing, but it will hopefully be a talking point, and we're going to really push our abilities and understanding of AI to be able to do it.
Sounds exciting. What about you, Kelly? What are you doing with your activations? Anything popular, new, trending?
No, I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. We do our baristas at certain conferences. We've had popcorn booths and things like that meant to drive audiences to kind of smaller talk events like our tech talks and smaller workshops that are happening. We find success in those because it drives foot traffic to specific areas and we place them in key locations. So
Yeah, I wouldn't call it maybe an activation, but I do think putting all your VOPs in a honeypot is really smart, and that's quite cool that a lot of people should be thinking about. And Chion, you're doing a lot of stuff, aren't you, at your shows for activations?
We are. We always have the coffee lounge, but what we did ha added last year, and it was rebooked on site for this year as well, is a puppy lounge. Everybody loves puppies to take a break during the stressful day, but that's one we we have available like a tattoo lounge, like a tattoo parlor, arcade lounge, a lot of different activations, also the headshot lounge, but
Sounds exciting. I need a tattoo, a Yotta tattoo to go along with the case that we publish on the Grip site. Well, thank you very much to my great panelists. I'm going to go around the room just see how people can get in touch with you. Nick, how can people hit you up and ask you any questions, things like that?
Find me on LinkedIn.
Great. Chion, what about you? How can people find you?
same as like LinkedIn.
It's all about the LinkedIn. Kelly, are you on LinkedIn too? Is that the place where people can find you?
yes, yep, LinkedIn is the best spot.
Fantastic. Well, all that remains for me to say is come to our next webinar. Please scan it. But the most important thing is to thank my amazing guests. These panelists have given some fantastic insights. I've learned so much about webinars for sponsored exhibitors, how to herd cats, how to give people false deadlines, how to give them coffees and tattoos. So yeah, hopefully that's been useful to you, and thank you for your questions as well. And we will see you on the next GRIP webinar on the 28th of May. Thank you everyone for joining, and thanks to my panelists. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.